The Habs did what? Well, that might be the question you're asking yourself if you've been enjoying your summer vacation and just decided to pop up for a minute to see if there was any news related to the Montreal Canadiens. Well, there is. We've got 10 headlines for you, and it's coming up next. In fact, we know that you probably want to get back outside and enjoy the sun, so we are going to deliver these 10 Habs summer headlines to you in 10 minutes. And if you've got a minute or two to spare after that, stick around to the end of the video, and I'm going to deliver you 6 things that are up next for the Habs to look forward to this summer. The first headline is probably the big one, and that is who the Montreal Canadiens selected 5th overall this year at the 2024 NHL entry draft. And as luck would have it, Ivan Demidov fell to the Canadiens at number 5 overall, and the Canadiens managed to draft someone who could be a really impactful, game-changing young prospect on the forward core for the Montreal Canadiens. Demidov still has a year left on his contract playing for SKA, so we won't see him in the NHL this year. But looking ahead to that 2025-26 season, we'll see what happens. Matvei Michkov coming to the Flyers this year. It could happen that we could see Demidov here in North America next season. Sticking with draft news, because quite frankly, it was a pretty successful draft for the Canadiens this year. They, before the first round began, traded up from 26th overall to 21st overall for their second first-round draft selection. And Kent Hughes let it be known afterwards that the reason for that was because they were targeting a specific player, and they ended up getting him. Michael Hage is who they drafted at 21st overall. Some analysts had been predicting that he would go in the late teens, so the fact that he was still available for the Canadiens at 21 was definitely a win for the Habs, and he was already starting to impress at development camp in Brossard this past week. The third headline has to be who the Habs took in the third round of the draft, a name that is a little bit familiar, Atos Koivu. Yes, that's right, the son of beloved former captain of the Montreal Canadiens, Saku Koivu. Longtime fans of the Canadiens can even remember seeing young Atos at the Bell Center when Saku was playing with the Canadiens, and the family legacy has come full circle. But as analysts have told us, this was not just a nepotism pick, that Atos Koivu has absolute skill and definitely has earned this pick as a hard worker with a lot of talent. Those 3 selections were impressive enough, but for headline number 4, there are 7 more draft picks that the Canadiens took at the 2024 draft this year. Here they are in order of when they were selected. Continuing in round 3, the Canadiens took center Logan Sawyer, played in the BCHL this past season. In round 4 from the OHL, playing for Brantford, they took Owen Protz, who is a defenseman who definitely has some edge to his game. Let's just say he is a very physical young man. In round 5, they took Tyler Thorpe, who's a right winger who had played for the Vancouver Giants in the WHL. And in round 5, they took the only goaltender that they selected in this year's draft. His name is Mikus Vatsvenaks. That's right. Say that again with me. Mikus Vatsvenaks, who played for HS Riga this past season. Moving on to round 6, center Ben Merrill from St. Sebastian School. This is someone they selected out of the Prep School League. That's the same league that first rounder Dean Letourneau plays in as well. It'll be interesting to see how Ben Merrill develops, of course. Skating is something that he will need to work on in his development for sure. And then rounding out with round 7, 2 selections in the final round of the draft. Makar Hanin, a right winger from Dynamo St. Petersburg Jr., and with the last selection in this year's draft for the Canadiens, Rasmus Bergqvist, another defenseman playing for Skellefteå Jr. Moving on to headline number 5, the one free agent signing that took place by the Canadiens on the opening of free agency was one that's a bit under the radar, a 1-year, one-way contract for Alex Barré-Boulet. Many of you might not be familiar with that name. However, if you have watched the Laval Rocket play for any length of time, you would be very familiar with that name. Alex Barré-Boulet has been a nemesis for the Canadiens AHL franchise for a number of years because he has been with the Tampa Bay Lightning organization and has spent most of his time in the last 3 years or so playing for the Syracuse Crunch and has been an absolute dominant player for the Syracuse Crunch. He's only had a sprinkling of NHL games, so I see this signing as being someone that Kent Hughes could possibly be using as a 13th forward, but also they could send him down to Laval as well. He's got plenty of AHL experience. What was the bigger splash on free agency day was not a new free agent signing, but a contract extension that Kent Hughes got done with dynamic young forward Juraj Slafkovský, inking him for an 8-year contract extension valued at over $7 million per year. This has Slafkovský, Caulfield, and Suzuki now all locked up long-term. They are obviously building around this trio of a young core for the Montreal Canadiens in their future as a Stanley Cup contender. What do we have for headline number 7? Well, we have a coaching change at the Canadiens level. That's right. No, it's not Marty St. Louis, but it is Alex Burrows announcing that he and the Canadiens mutually came to a decision and an agreement for Burrows to step down as St. Louis' assistant coach. Burrows claiming that he wants to spend more time with his family. He is staying within the organization, however. He'll now be taking over a role in the player development department, but an interesting and probably unexpected from a fan's perspective announcement that Burrows will not be back behind the bench with Marty St. Louis. Could this mean perhaps an improvement on the power play next season? We'll have to wait to see. Number 8, we're moving now to the Laval Rocket part of the Canadiens organization in the AHL. The Laval Rocket announcing a slew of new signings on free agency day. There's a one-year, two-way deal with a goaltender, Hunter Jones. It's more likely that Jones will spend the bulk of the season in the ECHL since he is on a two-way AHL deal, only to be recalled if there's a necessity. If Dobesh or Connor Hughes either get injured or have a recall to Montreal for some reason. The rest of the signings were one-year, one-way AHL deals. Guys like Tyler Wotherspoon, a defenseman, Vincent Sevigny, Joshua Jacobs, all three of them defensemen. There was Vincent Arsenault, a forward, and the return of forward Laurent Dauphin. This is a recurring theme with the Laval Rocket. They seem to always manage to bring back a Francophone veteran who used to play for the team and then left for a season or two. They did that with Toby Paquette-Bisson, who was back last season after spending some time away from Laval, and he is once again not going to be back with the Laval Rocket this year, and so this time it's Laurent Dauphin. You'll remember Dauphin was with Laval for a little while, did not spend last season with them, but he will be back as well. Number 9 is kind of a combo headline. You may have missed that J.F. Uhl, the head coach for the Laval Rocket, is no longer the head coach for the Laval Rocket. He actually just weeks after signing his new 3-year contract extension, announced that he was departing from the team because he had been offered the head coaching position in the NCAA back at his alma mater, Clarkson University. So J.F. Uhl has now left the organization as coach. We already had known earlier in the offseason that Kelly Buchberger would not be back. He's chosen to take a coaching position in a junior hockey league out in Alberta to be closer with his family. Well, one of those positions was filled when Daniel Jacob, you remember that name? It was announced that he's returning to Laval as assistant coach. Daniel Jacob has been Joël Bouchard's right-hand man for a number of years. Bouchard had brought him along as an assistant when Bouchard took over as head coach in Laval a number of years ago, about 6 years ago, and he brought Jacob with him. When Bouchard then went to San Diego, Daniel Jacob followed him there, and when Bouchard came back into coaching to coach with Syracuse last season, Daniel Jacob followed him there as well. And just recently, Syracuse Crunch had announced that they and Daniel Jacob have mutually agreed to part ways, and Jacob now popping up back in Laval as an assistant coach. So we're not yet sure if this was a scenario where he also wanted to just return home to Quebec and be closer to his family. So this will be the first time in a very, very long time that Daniel Jacob and Joël Bouchard will be on opposing benches. Last but certainly not least, in terms of 10 Habs summer headlines, has been development camp. A number of prospects were there doing their off-ice testing, their physical testing, and plenty of on-ice testing, plus the scrimmage that's always very fun for the development staff and the organization to pinpoint what each player needs to spend the rest of the summer and their next season working on to grow their game. But guys like Owen Beck were there, Florian Jacki was there, Quentin Miller was there, Jacob Fowler was there, plus some of the crop of new prospects from this most recent draft. It's always fun to see all of the youth in the organization come together and kind of shake off the nerves a little bit, show off what they can do. And it's great seeing the development staff and the coaches work with them to put them on the next path in the next steps of their development process. So there you have it. I promised you 10 Habs headlines in 10 minutes or less, and that's what I just delivered. I also promised that if you stuck around to the end of the video, that I would have 6 things that are up next for the Canadiens in this offseason, and I'm going to give that to you right now. But first, if you're enjoying this kind of content, then take a second to hit that subscribe button and tap the notification bell so that you never miss when we release a video. And hey, while you're at it, why don't you tap that like button as well if you've enjoyed this video, and leave us a comment down below. Let us know what you think of this summer's Habs headlines so far. Okay, so 6 things to look forward to now for the rest of the summer. Well, here you have it. First of all, the Canadiens are going to need to hire a replacement for Alex Burrows. So be on the lookout. There's got to be an announcement at some point. Marty St. Louis will need to decide who he wants to bring in as an assistant to replace Alex Burrows. Secondly, obviously, there's going to need to be a hiring for a Laval head coach as well. With the assistant coaches actually now all in place, what are they going to do in terms of a head coach who is likely going to come in and not be able to fill out his staff the way that he would like to? Could that mean that we see a coach come in who doesn't necessarily have a lot of AHL experience, perhaps a coach from the QMJHL? We'll just have to wait to see. With Kent Hughes being so quiet on free agency day, I imagine that we are going to see a sprinkling of signings as the summer continues, but trades, obviously. There still needs to be trades that will happen. Jonathan Kovacevic was one player who was traded out, but there needs to be more of that happening. There are some other players who absolutely could be trade chips, and so I expect that we're going to see some more deals before the season starts next year. Speaking of prospects and keeping an eye on the youth and how they're doing, USA Hockey will host their annual World Junior Summer Showcase, usually at the end of July, beginning of August. It's a 4-country mini tournament that takes place in Plymouth, Michigan at the USA Hockey Arena. It acts as a warm-up and a tune-up and a first look for each country to start to make selections for their World Junior team for over the winter. But it's also a great opportunity to see some of the top prospects from the US, from Canada, from Finland, and Sweden playing against each other in a high competition summer tournament. Also, at the beginning of August, expect the Hlinka Gretzky Cup as well. That's another tournament that a lot of scouts and analysts keep an eye on just to see how the performance of some of the younger players pans out during a summer tournament that's usually pretty well regarded. And last but certainly not least, number 6, all eyes will be on September when rookie camp opens. That's kind of like the official, unofficial opening of the new season when the rookies arrive in Montreal and they have their rookie camp, which will end in a mini tournament. The Canadiens will not be traveling to Buffalo to take part in the rookie tournament, the 5-team rookie tournament there. They instead are going to host Toronto's rookies for a couple of games at the Bell Center in mid-September. But it will be an exciting time because there are definitely some rookies who will be competing for opening night roster spots. So there you have it, 10 Habs summer headlines, plus 6 things to look forward to in the remainder of the offseason. September will be here before you know it, folks. Don't worry, we are going to have you covered with all of the latest Habs news and Laval news and prospect news as it comes out this summer. But we won't ever keep you too long. We want you to get back out in the sun. So yes, this was a bite-sized look at the Habs headlines this summer. But if you'd like to relax and kick back and listen to some little more in-depth analysis, boy, do I have the video for you. Flow Hockey's Chris Peters, NHL draft and prospect analyst, recently sat down this week with Rick Stevens and myself, and he went on a deep dive with us on all of those draft picks from the Canadiens and exactly what kinds of players they are, gave us a great scouting report on each one and their potential. And if you would like to learn more about each one of the guys selected by the Habs at this year's draft, then you're going to want to watch this video right here. See you next time.